You can hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah, 1, 2, 1, 2. You can hear me, right? Is it on? Okay, this one's off. Let me switch it on for you. Over here. Hold on. Put it on now.
Okay, speak it now.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, we can start. Okay. It is okay. Okay, good evening, good afternoon, not good evening. Good afternoon. The Minister of Agriculture and Food Security of Israel extend its sincere gratitude to IICA authorities, especially to Margaret, Jessica, and Edmi for help us to be part of this important place and this important pavilion. Thank you to the entire team of IICA. It's a privilege for us to organize this event in collaboration with IICA in the Americas Pavilion. I would like to introduce the event From Data to Decision, Strengthening Agriculture Collaborative Solution for Climate Resilient Agriculture. The event will consist in 2 parts. The first one will be a panel session, and I would like to introduce Dr. Gidon Toporov from the Ministry of Agriculture of Israel and Food Security from Israel, as well as Miss Yael Storz Perez from the National Water Authority, and Mark Per from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security of Israel. This panel will highlight the importance of the collaborative ecosystem for achieving climate resilient agriculture, focusing on solutions aimed to 2050 and beyond. And the second part will include a fireside chat moderated by the Ambassador Gidon Bahar. Thank you, Gidon, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel. He is the envoy for climate change in our Minister of Foreign Affairs, representative for the OEA, or us, as you say in English, Mr. Ruben Contreras, Natasha Santos from Bayer. Thank you, Natasha, for coming and be with us. And Camila Rodriguez-Teiro for IDB Invest. Thank you, Camila. They will discuss the path from Baku to Belem and explore ways to strengthen the cooperation between Israel and the principal stakeholders in the Latin American and Caribbean region. Margaret, thank you again for being. If you want to say some words.
I just want to say very quickly, we're so glad and proud to have you here with us. We recognize Israel and the Ministry of Agriculture of Israel as good friends and leaders in innovation and technology and partnerships. And they have so many great things they can bring to the Americas, and likewise the Americas with Israel. We hope to have greater cooperation in the future. And this is your first panel with us, and we hope there will be more in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Really, thank you. Okay, Gidon, please, the floor is yours, and thank you to everyone. And I look forward to a productive and fruitful event.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming. And thank you, Daniel, for the introduction. It's very proud to be here and and have an opportunity to speak about what we are doing in Israel to try and reach more sustainable food production in an era of climate change. So my name is Gidon Toporov. I work in the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security in the Shaham unit, which is the Extension Agriculture Extension Service, and some of my colleagues will speak later. I'm in the agroecology unit, which is our goal widely is to provide more sustainable food production, and first and foremost, before speaking about adaptation to climate change, I must say that our main goal must always be to create agroecological systems which are sustainable with a balance, hopefully negative greenhouse gas balance, because our plants can pull out carbon dioxide from the air, or at least a net zero effect of agriculture, But that's not what we're going to be talking about today. Today, we'll be talking about the other side of the problem, which is we know that even if we take profound action to mitigate climate change, we still have, because of the long time life of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere, we still need to cope with the implications of our past and present deeds or actions. So, call this Pathways to Knowledge Exchange for Climate Smart Agriculture. And when we talk about the challenges of climate change, the most clear is the water stress, and many countries are experiencing very high water stress, not only for food production but also for water, for drinking and for all other needs. In Israel, in a harsh climate, which is semi-arid to arid, all over the country, Israel has found a way to still manage to produce food, and this is a kind of let's call it a timeline of progress or evolution in attempt to battle or to combat water scarcity. So, if in the 50s and 60s all of the agriculture, which is not rain-fed, was based on drinking water and potable water, and most of the irrigation was surface irrigation. During the next 20 years, a few infrastructure projects like the National Carrier allowed bringing fresh water to other areas, together with introducing meterized and automation technologies. If you don't meter the water use, you can't really improve yourself. Using pressurized irrigation, which is much more efficient in needing or in producing more food from each drop of water. And during the 1990s, introducing much more widely drip irrigation, which is considered the most efficient if you use it right. Increased use of brackish water instead of we hardly have any rivers or any streams that flow all year round, so we don't have a good solution for our brackish water, our wastewater. By treating wastewater, doing it safely with the regulations needed, be able to use almost all of the almost all of the water goes to agriculture after treatment, and in the last 10-15 years, using more and more desalination of water in order to supplement the use of treated wastewater. Together, we've managed to form relatively stable, resilient system in which, when a farmer wants to grow produce that is not rain-fed, he knows that he can find the water. He'll have to pay for it a lot, and the basis for being able to improve is that the farmer has a great incentive to save water, but he can still produce food because water is food. And with that story, we've been seeing over the same 70 years. Oops, can't see. Not sure this is working. Anyway, if 70 years ago the agricultural use was the main use of water in our state, during the last 70 years the use per capita has been decreasing and pulling down the water use per capita, and this is not instead of producing food, because you can see on the right hand side the purple line shows the crop index. So we're managing to produce more food without using more water, and add into that the water we're using, this is total water, including fresh water, treated wastewater, and water from desalination plants. So we're using much less water from nature, about 30%, while producing more food. So what we call the water food axis decoupling, managing to produce more food without using more water. But the water stress is only one of the challenges, and in the past years we've been much more aware of other climatic hazards, climatic risks to food and food productions and food systems. So we've been seeing forecasts predicting that over the next over the current century, the extreme heat waves, extreme heat events will be more and more frequent, and showing here a graph showing temperatures of we would say 42 degrees, which is about 108 degrees Fahrenheit, and these will become in future more common, and these are events that used to be very very rare in our area. And when we had this kind of events, we've been seeing huge damage to our crops, our fields, and our orchards. So what can we do? The first part of solution is obviously to understand the scope of the problem. So we've been undertaking a few steps in order to understand better, to assess risk better. First step was to define a little more than 50 indices, ag sector specific indices for climate change. We've been asking our meteorological service for help with that, and together with Mark, who you'll hear before soon, who is our own in-house meteorologist, and with the meteorology service, we've been getting a lot of data on future trends and past trends. Okay, past climate trends in the indices we're interested in, and future forecasts. Next step is to combine climatic models with crop models and be able to start and build risk assessments for different kinds of crops we're growing, not only field crops but also orchards and vegetables, and then an economical model to understand how much is needed to put money in funding, and how economical it's going to be adapting to climate change versus just having the damage. And the third part is forming a plan for food security. And on the one hand, we have local production, and our government has just decided on a plan to increase local production by 33% within the next 10 years until 2035. And on the other hand, we import food from all over the world, but the countries we're importing food from are becoming less and less resilient to climate change. So we have to find ways through binational agreements and through diversifying our food import in order to be able to have sustainable food supply. So that's a big challenge. How do we find solutions to the climate problems? So I guess in just a few phrases, the steps we have to do. First of all, produce seeds which are more resilient to climate, could be more resilient to the dry, saline lands, hot summers, less cool winters. Second step is finding more tools for microclimate manipulation. In cases that the manipulation needed is too big, we have to find new crops that are suitable for the new climate. We have to find suitable regions. In other words, we understand that our deciduous fruits that we grow in some areas are already not having enough cold hours, and we'll have to exchanged by other crops or moved to higher elevations. And we must remember that nature has the best tools, the best resources, and using preserving the natural genes of natural plants, not cultured plants, but wild plants, we can manage to find or try and allow ourselves to find in the future solutions to the problems that will arise. And how could we do that? Because the challenges are very big. So one of the things that have been working in Israel is partnership between different parts of the ag sector. So the farmer is obviously the most important part, grows the food, but the farmer is only as good as he or as good as he can quickly adapt using tools that he's given. So it's very common in Israel that farmers work together with the technology and agrotechnology sector, together with the extension service, who I'm part of, and together with research. So usually either researcher has an idea, he brings it to the extension service, technology companies and farmers say, well, do you actually have this problem? Or maybe the farmer will say, that's not my problem at all. And on the other hand, maybe more common, the problems arise from the farmer. And if you have a close-knit section where everyone works together, you can hope to find the solutions as quickly as possible, and not only for our climate problems, because Israel has climate regions which are similar to a lot of other places in the world and are experiencing similar challenges, and maybe very wide areas in the world which are relatively wetter will have similar challenges that we have already been challenged by in the past years. So working together, that's number one. An example for a scheme that's been put up in the last 2 years is combining for research and development, combining three steps. The very long-term research. We've had programs for new seeds for orchards. Those are programs which take 6 to 10 years and require lots of money. We're not a big country, but still the government's putting in money for that. Then the second floor is the medium term, and in our government there have been special schemes, programs for climate change adaptation research, and there've been one of the past years, half of the research money of our ministry have been going to climate change adaptation. And a new program we have is short-term applied research specifically for climate change adaptation, and we have quite a few new projects which combine a researcher together with an extension service person, together with a farmer or technology company, working together to find solutions which hopefully will be akin to the actual challenges of the farmers. So with that, I'll thank you for your attention and be open for discussion.
Okay, we want to continue immediately. Stay with us, Gidon, to the panel. We will have a few minutes with the panel to, after this, enter to the second part of the event. So I would like to invite Dr. Yael Stor-Peretz from the Israeli Water Authority. Please, Yael, take your seat. Mr. Mark Perl this is our meteorologist from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, and Gidon, please, Dr. Gidon Toporov, that you have met him. Okay, I have a question. I hope that is not a surprise for you, but I have one question for everyone, and after this we will answer to one question to all of you. I will start with Yael. Yael, please, you have to take 1 minute to explain what do you do and what, okay? It's important for us, to the people, to know what do you do in Israel. And the question is, how can real-time data and predictive analytics improve our resilience to extreme phenomena such as floods, for example? Please.
Thank you, Daniel. Hello, everyone. My name is Yael. I'm the Director of Surface Water and Hydrometeorology Department, which is part of the Hydrological Service, which is a division in the Israeli Water Authority. As Gideon said before, we have in the Water Authority in Israel, we have 3 water resources. So the Hydrological Service takes care specifically of the natural water resources. So we deal with surface water, and because we deal with surface water, then we collect the data, we monitor, and also predict. It could be flood forecasting, it could be also climate forecasting. These are all the areas that we're working on. So to your question, Daniel, data collection, measurements, models are all data sets, and we have to take these data sets and extract the knowledge. Why do we need the knowledge? We need the knowledge in order to make decision-making better and to make policy-making. So we do that when we're talking about floods. We're doing that in specific 3 aspects. First aspect would be planning. In order to plan, we need to understand what we're planning for. So we need, for floods, first, the hydrological data. So we collect data. The Hydrological Service has about 130 hydrometric stations collecting data in the rivers and streams, discharge and volumes continuously. And when we have that data, then, especially when it's long-term data, then we can start calculating statistics and calculating the design capacity into what hydrological conditions do we need to build our solutions. Because what we need when we're talking about floods and planning is, first of all, to prevent risks. Floods are natural, but we have to prevent the risk because the floods have interaction with infrastructure, with our cities, with population, with hikers, and we have to make sure that we reduce the risk. So the first step is by planning. Then after we planned, then we have the event of the flood, which could be also an emergency event. In order to deal with that emergency event, then we have the flood forecasting and warnings. And we can take the rain data, translate it into hydrological data forecasting, and then we take the hydrological forecasting, the flood forecasting, and we translate it into warnings and risks. So the emergency agencies and the first responders know how to prepare and how to act accordingly. So we take the hydrological models and we translate them into warning maps for roads, for hikers, for overbank overflow of the rivers. Everything in the bank could be flooded. And also for urban floods, which are caused by drainage failures, which this is also very important. The third thing is, after the flood, then we have to rehabilitate. And we have to make sure that the risk doesn't continue. So then again, taking all the data, taking all the models, taking into consideration also what's going to happen in the future. That's climate change, of course, that we have to take under consideration, but not only. Urbanization effects and land use change affects the floods, and we have to take that all to consideration when we plan ahead, when we take into consideration our forecasts, and when we rehabilitate. So I think we look at ourselves in the Hydrological Service as the national database and also a source of knowledge. We prepare the knowledge for the policymakers, make sure they make the right decisions according to data, not just hypotheses or just reading the news, but scientific data. I think one of the biggest challenges for scientists is understanding how to show the policymakers the science in a very simple manner that they can understand it, because they are not scientists. And this is our main job. So I hope I answered your question. Thank you very much.
Ask you before you take the microphone. So Mark, 1 minute for introduce yourself. And the question is how you, as the head of Agri-Meteo Division in the Ministry of Agriculture, which factors shape your decision making, and who are the key factors and the key collaborators, and how do you disseminate this recommendation from your position?
Great, good question, Daniel. All right, good afternoon to everybody. My name is Mark Perrell, and I've been for the last 20 years in charge of the agricultural department in the Ministry of Agriculture. And it's been a privilege to work with farmers. I'm truly privileged, people who give their lives for making food for our country. And like Gideon said, food is life. So it's everything. So I think I've got the best job in the world. It's just to help them. And there's no a better feeling you get than when a farmer calls and just says, well, you've saved my orchard. So we're truly privileged, and I'm not even talking about climate change. I'm just talking to day-to-day collaboration with farmers. So what do we do? And basically, it's just it's a service. It's quite a unique service that we give to the farmers in Israel to help them in the day-to-day decision-making, which isn't easy. We help them small decisions like when to spray, when to fertilize, when to bring the workers. They've got to pay a daily wage for the workers that are arriving. And if it rains the whole day, well, they're just going to sit, oh, the workers are great, you know, sitting together, talking, but basically not working. So that might be a problem. So that's in the short time scale. When we're looking further on to the medium range, okay, we're talking about harvesting, sowing crops, and so these are decisions that have to be made. Also seasonal forecasting, and then when we're looking further on, and we'll connect to what Gideon said about climate change. When we look towards the effects of climate change on agriculture towards 2050 and towards the end of the century, then we're looking at crop modeling, and we're starting to talk about impacts. Okay, I don't think the farmers understand if we say there'll be an annual 2-degree rise in temperatures, 10% drop in precipitation, a rise in evapotranspiration. We can give them all the data, but at the end of the day, we have to know not only the farmers, also the stakeholders, and in the government as well. I don't think they all realize the impact. And the risk analysis that we've been doing with basically Gideon, we're seeing a significant drop in most of the crops in Israel. So we've got to get ready for that. If we want to produce more, okay, we've got to realize the challenge we have ahead. So I was just saying what I do in, so I'll leave a bit of time just about to answer your question about the parameters and everything. 2 minutes, yeah, no problem. We give, we relate to all the parameters, everything's important. In the summer, mainly evapotranspiration. But basically, evapotranspiration is based on radiation, temperatures, relative humidity, and wind speed. So we have to forecast everything. And in the winter, precipitation. All the farmers all the time call me, Mark, when's it going to rain? We had a nice rain session the other day, so that's great for everybody. And the distribution of your forecast. You can be the best meteorologist in the world, and I'm not saying I'm the best, but you can be. And I'm far from the best, believe me. You know, the forecasters are always wrong, so don't believe them. And you can have, the best data in the world, but if it's not distributed correctly to our clients, and who are our clients? Basically the farmers. So it's not getting to anybody, and we're not doing our job. So what do? We use technology. We have an internet site specifically tailor-made for the farmers. Download all the data from our stations. We have over 100 stations all around Israel. We have 27 geoclimatic zones in Israel, so quite a diverse climate. We have tailor-made forecasts for the farmers in specific areas where there's farming, because the general forecast will always talk about the main cities and the public. I'm not saying it's not important, but we have, and our farmers have, specific needs. Then, so we have the internet, but the farmers all the day are in the farm, in the land, so you need your app, okay? So we have a special app for the farmers, also for alerts, extreme weather alerts, which are intensifying, as Gidon said before. So they get alerts via the cell phone. And finally, we have a secret system. I don't know if anybody's heard here of something very serious breakthrough here. WhatsApp? No one's heard of WhatsApp. All right, so we have, I send WhatsApp messages every morning to thousands and thousands of farmers. And to be honest, it's not only farmers today, and it's quite embarrassing, but they love it. So we send the specific message, and it gets through. I'm actually amazed. Very low tech, but very efficient, and it gets through to everybody. So as I was told, and I'll end over one last sentence, Daniel. In economics, size is normally an advantage. But we have size, small size, but we use that to our advantage because we are in constant connection with our farmers. Farmers have all the details, like I said to you before, but they can also phone me directly, 24/7. And if they really irritate me, I let my wife answer the phone. And that's the last time they call. All right, so, seriously, we are privileged to give this service. It helps the farmers, and hopefully we continue with climate change and extreme weather events to be more efficient, give a better service, and help the agriculture in Israel become more prosperous and be there for the challenges that we have in the not too far future. Thank you very much.
Okay, the last question to Gidon. Please, Gidon, from your position, why the climate risk assessment is so important for agriculture? You have 2 minutes.
Okay, is this working? Yeah. Okay, well, I don't think I need to add too much to what Yael had been saying before. The science and the data is the base for informed decision making. Informed decision making on the side of the farmer, that's the first and foremost, and informed decision maker on the side of the extension consultant, and it could be also a consultant and agronomist of a company, and informed decision making for the ministry and for the government. So if I can manage to get more of each of those steps, more people to make informed decision making, then I feel that I've done a little bit of my job.
Okay, the last question for everyone. 1 minute for everyone to answer. This is very challenge. From the position that you have in your places, in the workplaces, please tell me how or which are the key factors for fostering and integrate all the climate-related collaboration with the stakeholders from other sectors, not only from our sector, from other sectors, and issues like data that you have just spoke about, but it's important to remark this. How do you conducting this problem or this issue?
So I think, as I said before, as we see ourselves as a national database of hydrology, and we try to aim that the database will be suitable for all stakeholders. Everybody who needs the hydrological information, it could be planners, it could be agriculture, it could be the emergency agencies, it could be the water sector. Whoever needs the hydrological data, it has to be available for him. It has to be easy to understand. There has to be policy and instructions how to use it, and again, the knowledge that we want. And we have to make sure that the data we provide and how we provide it is suitable for all the stakeholders, which are the knowledge consumers, I call them. So that is why we are in touch with them all the time, trying to understand their needs and then provide their needs and even develop new data if we need to do so. This is our job.
Thank you. Mark, please, 1 minute.
Yeah, no, I want I'll make it short. I'll make it short. First of all, collaboration between the different sectors and offices, like with the Ministry of Agriculture, Water Authority, Met Office, extremely important, not easy, okay, not easy, and everybody has their own politics. That's number one. Second, I'd say hard work. In the 20 years that I've been in charge, it's very nice looking like this, but I never look like this. I don't think on my wedding I was dressed like this. But you got to go and out from your air-conditioned office, and go to the field and see the actual needs of your clients. And feel what they feel and see how hard it is for them. You can't give them the service if you don't know what their needs are. So that's the second thing. And I think the third thing, and that's what we need, is free data. There's no charge. The government gives the public free data through the internet site or via me or different departments. As we see it, the public pay taxes. We are civil servants. It's our job to give the data and the service back to them, and we try to do it as best we can.
Thank you. Gidon?
Hi. So I hope I'll be answering the question. Probably I'll take it to a different point, because we've been talking about adaptation to climate change. But we must remember that there's a link between adaptation and mitigation, and a lot of the steps for mitigation are also steps that have co-benefits, and some of them are also to adaptation. So whether if that's regenerative agriculture, better treatment for agricultural waste, and better diet for animals, and all challenges that you have to work together with all of the other parties. So we feel that if we can make the most of the co-benefits, manage to make our food more sustainable and also more adaptable to climate change.
Okay, thank you, Yael, Mark, and Gidon. And stay with us. We will introduce Ambassador Gidon Bahar. He is the envoy of climate change, to moderate the second part. It will be in a more Latino style, not keynote speakers, but this will be very interesting. So stay with us. Gidon, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
האוזניות שלי. Muchas gracias, Senor Daniel. I'm very happy to be the moderator of our next and very exciting panel. I would like to call our panelist, Ruben Contreras, please. Come and join us. Ruben is a senior officer and chief of the climate change section in the Department of Sustainable Development of the Organization of American States. I would like to call Camila Rodriguez-Taylor, Advisory Services Officer for Climate Change at IDB, Invest IDB. Thank you. And our last but not least participant and panelist, Natasha Santos from Bayer AG, Crop Science Division, Vice President, Head of Sustainability and Strategic Engagement. Thank you very much for hosting us. As you can see, we have 3 panelists from 3 different categories. Each one of you represent a different sector, the private sector, multilateral organization, development bank. So it gives us really a very good platform of understanding what we can do. Maybe I'll say also a few things about myself. I'm a diplomat already 30 years. I've been ambassador to Senegal, and in Senegal, I fell in love with agriculture, and I have initiated 15 agricultural projects in Senegal. So I'm more of a farmer ambassador rather than a diplomat. And at home I grow vegetables, and I have fruits trees and other things. If you follow me on Facebook, you'd see some of the photos. It's all organic, natural, excellent products. And you know, my wife, she asks me, Gideon, what do you miss the most when you are here? Do you miss me or my garden? I tell her I miss the garden. Send me photos. So here we are. And let me say something at the beginning of our panel. And also for my experience, I think that the best way to prepare to the climate crisis is to shift as possible, where possible, to irrigated agriculture. Because rain-fed agriculture is suffering from shifting patterns of precipitation. There is less rain, less water on the ground. And if we do not produce our food from a reliable source of water, we will not be able to secure food production for the planet. So this is maybe one take for myself. Now, we have 2 sets of questions, and each one of you has 4 minutes. And 2 questions for all of you. So I'll start with the first one. And the following is the question. From your current position and experience, what are the objectives and challenges you foresee in achieving resilience in agricultural and food systems? And what concrete actions can we take to pave the way from Baku to Belem? So, Ruben, you are sitting next to me. You'll start, please.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Gideon, for the introduction. And thank you for the invitation. I'm really glad to be here. Let me clarify, the Organization of American States is a very unique organization. It's kind of a techno-political organization. We're the bridge between technology or knowledge and policymakers. No? We're not a bank, we're not a institution who produce data, but we really discuss with policymakers. It's at the heart of the organization. No? We have permanent missions, and we have constantly discussions with the policymakers, no? How they can use data to produce better policies. But the issue here is like, and I will say, based on our experience and also what we do, I mean, you already said, and I think everyone already said, that the main objective is to have a resilient agricultural sector, you know, climate resilience, no? And from our perspective, to do that, you need good policies, good regulation. Beyond, we have the technology, no? Engineering is not an issue. It's more like how we can get really the policy, the political willing. That's the real issue. You know, you can have all the money in the world, you can have all the engineers in the world, but if the government doesn't have the political willing to support one specific sector, nothing's going to happen. So that's from our perspective and the way we work in the region. So to do that, we developed actually last year, we held ministerial on sustainable development. The main topic was climate change. It was a political declaration. So that declaration gave us the mandate, not only to us, but the Inter-American system. For example, the Inter-American Development Bank is part of the Inter-American system, ICA is part of the Inter-American system, the Pan American Health Organization is part of the Inter-American system. So the idea is to work together, and these mandates give us the political will from the governments, what we should do to support them. So we have right now, and it was approved, the Inter-American Climate Change Action Plan. So that's kind of the roadmap for us, what we should do to support the countries. And
So what you are saying is that your organization has a roadmap for resilient agriculture for the American...
agriculture is included. So we include is water, energy, agriculture, food security in particular. We focus a lot on food security. ICA is more the working underground in the field about the agricultural sector per se. And of course, risk assessment, risk mitigation, of course, at the high level, we're not working on the ground. And from our perspective, we believe that we need to work stronger on to have better partnerships, working in a more coordinated fashion among us, about the institution who is producing data, the one who is with the money, basically, with the funds, and the one who does the political dialogue. I think we need better coordination. I think we need more regional cooperation. I think South-South cooperation is essential. We need to enable the conditions to have more transparent political discussion. And I will say something that we identified during the ministerial. Every country were complaining about the lack of access to the climate funds. And if you check the data today, Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, those three countries, they get 70% of all the money available for the Latin American region from multilaterals. So what's happening? I mean, if you go to Brazil, you have 100 people working on the Green Climate Fund, for example. The delegation at the Inter-American Development Bank, they're huge. Mexico the same, Colombia the same. But then if you go to the Caribbean with a population of an island with 10,000 people, one person working for climate change, climate finance, they cannot really even understand the climate architecture, the climate finance architecture. So barely they can apply to the Green Climate Fund, to the World Bank, to the Adaptation Fund, you name it, there's so many, to the GEF. So if you want to develop a resilient agriculture, you need to make available the funds, the money for them to get the technology, you need to strengthen the transfer of knowledge, the transfer of data, be more transparent, not only, because if you need to pay for data, that doesn't work, especially for poor countries. And to close this, I would say one of the main efforts we're doing right now is to work with the poorest countries in the region. Literally, we're developing a kind of a project facilitator hub, which is going to enable us to get the country, identify the challenge, the problem, help them to develop a project proposal, and identify which is the most suitable fund to apply, and then help them to apply to the fund in the implementation of the project. So basically that's the way we're operating, and that's the challenges we see in the region.
Thank you very much, Ruben. This was very helpful. You have mentioned the importance of good policies and regulation and the political will, which is necessary. You have mentioned your resilience plan, which is also important because some small countries must rely on multilateral organization for having professional advice. You have mentioned the importance of regional cooperation and also the accessibility to finance and how to get it from international sources. Very important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Camelia, you are next.
Well, thank you for having me here. I come from IDB Invest, the private sector branch of the Inter-American Development Group. So we finance private sector companies, particularly in agribusinesses. They are large companies that have supply chains with smallholder farmers. So we don't work directly with the smallholder farmers, but we work with these the larger anchor companies that might have smallholder farmers in their supply chain. And I'd like to talk about three things in terms of challenges and opportunities. And the first one is access to knowledge. The second one is the need for a behavioral change. And the third is access to finance. So in terms of access to knowledge, what we are seeing in our clients is that they don't necessarily have knowledge about what are the forecasts in terms of the physical climate risk that their business models have. So they might have weather information to make decision making at a short term, but they don't have information of how climate change will affect them and what will be the cost of inaction. So something that we do within IDB Invest is offer technical assistance to help them identify what is the physical climate risk that they can foresee in the future, identify adaptation measures, which can be practices and technologies, and then help them to make that decision and investment plans, knowing how much they could lose if they don't do it, right? So, for example, how much can the productivity be decreased if they don't apply resilience measures? And for this, we have developed a tool that is called AgriAdapt that helps us in function of the geography of the geolocation of the client, the type of crop or livestock, the type of production system that they have, if they have irrigation systems or don't have irrigation systems. We can see how much the productivity yields will be affected. We can see how much the incidence of pests can affect the crops, and we can help the client understand the losses and impacts they might have. The second point that I mentioned was behavioral change. So we strongly believe in regenerative agriculture models and transitioning away from business as usual, monoculture, expansive, highly intensive in agrochemical products for producing secure food and nutritious food for the future, right? So producing more diversity of food that is nutritious and that is available at scale. And for this, some of the regenerative agriculture practices that have benefits for biodiversity and for water conservation and for soil health are, for example, agroforestry and diversification of crops, moving away from the monoculture. And this is a big transition. This takes a enormous change in mindset and investment and change in behavior, and this is very difficult. The same happens with, for example, pesticides, moving from the use of pesticides to biological control, or moving away from synthetic fertilizers to bio inputs and organic fertilizers, going back to regenerative agriculture, basing ourselves on nature and reducing using precise agriculture or precision agriculture to reduce the carbon footprint and reduce the dependency on expensive products. So this behavioral change takes time and takes knowledge again and takes investment and kind of an innovative leadership. So we need piloting, we need to have examples that can be scaled and to show how these practices can be adopted. And that connects to the third and last point that I wanted to mention, that is access to finance, right? And being a bank, we have several instruments that we can use to support clients in adopting new technology and practices, such as sustainability-linked loans, which are related to particular milestones that, if achieved, then we can reduce the interest rate on the loan, so that this can be an incentive for carbon emission reductions or water reduction in the water consumption, etc. These are results-based lending. Then we also have blended finance, which is a concessional finance that we have from donors that we can blend into the structuring to be able to incentivize, again, the adoption of certain practices that we see have like triple benefits in productivity, climate mitigation, and climate adaptation. And then we're exploring other kinds of incentives, such as like carbon credits or biodiversity credits, ways in which we can support companies and smallholder farmers to have like other streams of revenues that can be an incentive for them, for example, to stop deforestation and to increase productivity in the land that they already have. And as Ruben just mentioned, the political will is important, and it would be wonderful to have, for example, subsidies that move away from certain practices and that subsidize regenerative agriculture practices. Yes.
Camila, thank you very much. This was really amazing. You have mentioned 3 points. The access to knowledge, especially to models and forecasts for climate change and how it will affect the farmers and agriculture. The accessibility to finance with an emphasis on finance that support nature, that support regenerative agriculture, that encourage the farmers to really behave in a good way with the soil and the land. And you have mentioned the change of behavior and moving into regenerative agriculture, which is extremely important if we want to create some kind of change in reducing emissions coming from the agricultural sector. So thank you very much. And I give the floor now to Natasha. Natasha, s'il vous plaît.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, it's a pleasure to be in a panel. I live in Germany, but I'm Brazilian, so in the House of Latin America is a pleasure. And organized by Israel, Bayer, in our pharmaceutical, but as well, which is my division, the agriculture division. We have several collaborations with Israel. At the moment, with the Israel Innovation Authority, we have a call out for any innovation that can help the challenges, particularly for vegetable growers, but can help to identify solutions for the main challenges of vegetable growers, among a lot of things. Our venture capital as well partner with a lot of and invest in a lot of startups in Israel. So it's the land of innovation, so it's a pleasure as an innovative company as well to be here. Thank you for inviting us. Maybe to be fair to the 4 minutes challenge that you posed to us, I will share a little bit of where we are in our journey in the agriculture division. So recently we have done, a year and a half ago, we have done a consultation with our farmers' customers. So as an input company, upstream farmers are our customers. Today we have, under our digital solutions, more or less, let's say, around 250 million hectares in our footprints, but those are the farms of our farmers' customers, right? So but just where we touch directly and indirectly, and we have a reach of more than 53 million farmers around the world in many countries, of course. So it's a global big company which we can really work with the farmers to get things at scale. So we've, in consultation with them, as we all know, but we got some feedback in some of our surveys that 75% of those farmers in our customers, they are concerned with climate change. Of course, they live in climate change, and 61% of those have, in the past 2 to 3 years, have had losses, yield losses, because of extreme weather conditions and many other climate change conditions that was touched in the first panel. And then we thought, okay, we have been discussing a lot. For us, one of the things that are more important is how can we look at business models for us, but for the farmers as well, and technologies that can help them increase their resilience. So particularly from the climate adaptation point of view, And then I think, as was touched here in the conversation on regenerative agriculture, we decided that we need to structure our strategy as a business from a R&D and as well from a business model around regenerative agriculture, because we need to look at the farms as a system, right? We need to think about how we bring technology, but how we bring partnership and other technology to fill the needs of the farmers. And I'll touch in three cases that we are putting into practices at the moment, the past years. So how do we do that with them from a regenerative agriculture point of view? Why do we think regenerative agriculture is a way of the future? Because it's outcome-based model, right? We are looking at the outcomes, regardless of the practices and the technology needs to support those outcomes for us, as I guess was touched as well. But for us, there are five main outcomes. One is profitability of the farms, of course, economics, yields, of course, particularly from a sustainable intensification point of view. If you think about land management and land conversion, we want to do more with less, particularly from a land perspective. And then restoration of biodiversity, soil health is core to that, water optimization, of course, and GHG emissions reduction, right? GHG emissions reduction. So what we can do to invest with the farmers on that system approach, we are doing, let's say, three massive scalable investments. One is in soybean in Brazil. We decided to think about the soybean value chain from a regenerative agriculture perspective. At the moment, we have more than 300,000 hectares of under the program that we are investing on in Brazil. And the soybean value chain has been very interesting because when we decided to do those investments, we realized that together with the Brazilian government, Embrapa particularly, that there was no methodology on carbon footprint on tropical agriculture. All the methodologies that are LCA international recognized, they were temperate focused. So we didn't have a methodology in tropical agriculture. We partner with a lot of universities there, with Embrapa, to design a calculator that can show the footprints of soybean and corn, footprint CO2 reduction in the value chain. So that was one. And then the second thing is to convince the farmers to do crop rotation, well, they do a lot of no-till already in Brazil, but to do the practices that will lead to those regenerative agriculture outcomes. First of all, the economics need to make sense. That's the most important thing. But second of all, they need, as much as possible, have some predictive models on how those interventions will look, for example, from a CO2 stock point of view, particularly from a soil health. So we have developed with Embrapa as well a predictive model, so they can apply, when you do an agronomic recommendation, they can apply the predictive model into a CO2 stock point of view, for example, and many other digital and technology investments that we have done. One of the main challenges for us in large scale like soybean is how you have a low-cost way to measure carbon sequestration in the soil, right? Today still is very manual, even with all the satellites and all the data platforms that we have around the world. However, nevertheless, we have quite a significant engagement from the farmers in Brazil because we have thought from the beginning on short-term incentives. So we partner with Banco do Brasil, the Brazilian bank, to have favorable loans. We've partnered with some startups to give them agronomic advice as well. So we have done a lot of intervention and incentives that they could be willing to do certain practices in their farm. So that's one example that we are very excited about. Another example, maybe from a water perspective, and I'll close on this one and I'll continue on the next round, but another example that we're very excited about, but is a smallholder and complex endeavor, is the transition from TPR, so transplanted rice, to DSR, direct seeded rice. And rice is so important, and I think who is in agriculture value chain knows, rice is so important because rice is the crop that is more water intensive of all crops around the world. And for us to make that transition into direct seeded rice, which has the potential to reduce emission by GHG by 45%, water by 40%. This is a research paper and field trials out there, public data available. We needed to look into the economics again and what would be the short-term motivation for farmers to start thinking about different practices, and here is not flooding, and to do directed seeded rice. First of all, we needed to look at the economics. So we realized it with partners there, Erie and others, that the main short-term incentive for them, economically speaking, was the labor shortage. So it's a seasonable labor. So it's hard for the farmers to get those during the seasons that they need, but as well is expensive. So if we can think about the return of investment from the farmers from a labor shortage point of view, we could make at least initially, the economic case for them to try those new practices. The challenge is that now the seeds and the weed management, the innovation that comes with that needs to work. So they need to completely plant differently than they do with TPR. So we needed to partner with machinery, we needed to partner with agronomic advice and micro-irrigation companies to get the technology that will complement some of our seeds and crop protection and others. So my point is a journey. We all want it together, but it's a journey. Regenerative agriculture, and those results take 3, 5, 6 years to come to life. And if we don't close the economics, we're not going to do it at scale.
Thank you very much, Natasha, for these very illuminating remarks. You have just highlight few of your few points from your speech. The good cooperation that Bayer has with Israel, the good connection that you have with farmers, millions of farmers around the world. So you really have a kind of ongoing transfer of knowledge with millions of farmers, which is very important. You have mentioned your transition into regenerative agriculture, which is very important, and the program that you have in Brazil. You have mentioned also rice, and I want to say something about rice. You know that 10% of the global methane emissions are coming from rice, okay? Now, the interesting thing about methane is that molecules of methane remain in the atmosphere up to 10 years. Okay? And methane is responsible for around 30% of the global warming. So if theoretically we stop today emitting methane, within 10 years we will reduce the impact of global warming by 30%. That's why methane is extremely important, and this is the most important decade that we need. So rice is extremely important. I just want to mention that Netafim company in Israel has invented rice that grows on drip irrigation. Okay, so you can either reduce emissions because you don't need these water ponds, but also you can increase food security because now you can grow rice also in areas where it wasn't possible before because they didn't have enough precipitation and water sources. So you can grow rice in Kenya, in other places around the world.
And imagine who is our main partner on rice in irrigation around the world? Netafim.
Bravo. So we come to our second and last question, and I would like to ask you to be precise because we want to give also some time for the people in the audience to ask questions. So giving Latin America and Caribbean and Israel as an examples, which platforms are best suited for the exchange of information, technologies, or management practices aimed at achieving sustainable agriculture, and how can we establish ecosystems to support these exchanges? In other words, this was a very long question. The other, a shorter version is, how do we cooperate?
No,
Please.
exactly. Well, from the OAS perspective, we believe in diversification. No? We need a lot of platforms. We promote usually regional programs, regional dialogues, building networks. So basically building kind of ecosystems to exchange information. And this is because we don't produce the data. But we work with people who is producing data, like ICA, the Economic Commission for Latin America, ECLAC, for example, or organizations. And I will say something which is really important. It's like a bilateral cooperation or South-South cooperation on exchanges of technology. For example, using the example of Israel, no, the technology you are developing, all your experience on water management, for example, or desalination. Those are things that we need in the region. We need in the region. You can hear me? Yeah. Yeah, we need in the region. Just because of climate change, we have a lot of issues with drought right now. For example, we have the case of Ecuador that today, and this is important, the nexuses. The OEAs work a lot on the nexuses of agriculture with water security, the energy component, because you're going to have a fight of water for energy, water for human consumption. So nexuses are super important. And for example, today in Ecuador, they have a severe drought after 10 years, so they don't have hydropower. But then who's going to have the irrigation for the agricultural sector?
I can tell you that we know that because there is no electricity in the Israeli embassy there.
You see? Yeah. So that's one of the issues. Then I would say 1 year ago, Uruguay was in a severe drought. Also Chile for 10 years with drought. And and the connection of that, and this is really connected with the platform to exchange knowledge, but also not only knowledge among technicians and policymakers, but also for the population, no, the citizens, because people need to understand the role of agriculture, but also they need to understand the risk, and the needs. And what I'm saying this is because before the pandemic, if you remember, in Latin America, we used to have around 160 to 180 million people under they were poor, basically. So we have around 180 poor people living in the region. So can you imagine if those people are really understanding, or if they do have awareness of the importance of the nexuses of water security, food security, energy security? They are just living the day by day. They need food to survive the day. And after the pandemic, because of the issues of energy, it was an energy crisis. Now, if you ask me, I would say it was during the pandemic, we have an energy crisis, fossil fuel increase, electricity tariff increase. So we reach around 210 million poor people in the country. So we have an increase. So if we talk about food security and the development and the needs of platforms to engage not only with policymakers and technicians, but also to create awareness about the importance of food security, we need to really work in a more, develop I will say this ecosystem of exchange information, but at every level, cross-cutting from policymakers to citizens. And that's the challenge, because today it's very difficult to reach, even though everyone is using a cell phone. When we talk about poor people, I don't know, you need to ask yourself, are we going to pay for food, or are we going to pay for the data plan? So that's a challenge. That's a challenge in how to reach people and how to create a conscious. And then another issue is the food waste. So I will stop here, but I will say that those issues and those concerns are included in the Inter-American Climate Change Action Plan that the OS is promoting and we're working on. But it's a long-term process, no? We need to have this kind of a long-term vision and not try to solve. We need to have a more like a strategy for one particular government, and that's an issue in the region. We don't have usually this kind of long-term vision, like a state policy. We usually have like just a governmental policy. So I will stop here, and that's it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Ruben, again. You have highlighted the importance of cooperation, and you have mentioned cooperation also with Israel, and the technologies and the experience that was developed in Israel that can serve also farmers in the Americas. You have mentioned also the importance of knowing the risks and the needs, and the importance of assistance to small farmers. This is extremely important. You have mentioned 200 million small farmers. We must not forget the small farmers. Really must not forget them. They are the ones who need most our assistance, and we have really to think how we can, as you've mentioned, communicate with them and transfer knowledge to them and make this knowledge accessible for them and understood for them. So, Camila, por favor.
Thank you. So I'd like to highlight the importance of synergies and partnerships, especially for knowledge exchange. So as has been mentioned previously, Israel has developed a lot of technology and innovation for very specific conditions of drought and 27 ecoregions. I had no idea that was such. And I think we can learn a lot from experiences and developments of practices and technologies elsewhere. So, for example, with the Ministry of Agriculture of Israel, we do have a partnership where we have been for the past years exchanging knowledge. And this has been extremely helpful for private sector companies in Latin America and the Caribbean. A few years ago, for example, we chose several companies from Latin America and the Caribbean that were interested in learning about Israeli technologies. They traveled to Israel, they met up with startups, with venture capitals, they experienced the technologies, and then that opened the mind of like what is accessible, and they could actually see the differences of piloting projects with and without certain technologies, and the improvements in yield and in water management. And so based on this experience that was very nutritious for these companies when they came back and they wanted to explore adapting these technologies to their context, we developed another partnership for more knowledge exchange. And I wanted to highlight some of the aspects of this partnership that I think are valuable. One is like a challenge for innovation, so identifying startups and technologies that can be developed in the region. Another one is technical assistance. As I mentioned previously, it is very important to be able to conduct technical assistance to identify the physical climate risk and identify potential adaptation measures and with a cost-benefit analysis. So we provide that, and then if there are Israeli technologies that are addressing these particular issues for a particular client, we can develop pilots, right? So many of the technologies have been developed for a particular context, but when you bring them to Latin America, it's not that easy to plug and play, right? You have to adapt them to the particular soil, geographic conditions, weather conditions, and also you need to have like maintenance and operations, and you have to have like a whole logistics plan in Latin America, right? So there has to be a knowledge of how to transfer that technology and that knowledge from one culture and one context to the other, and this is fundamental. So we are partnering to be able to try to do this, and we have several clients that are already interested in particular technologies. There's one in particular that I wanted to highlight, which is based on like regenerative agriculture and the combination of climate change and biodiversity, which is using bees for pollination, or systems that replicate bees pollination to enhance, of course, pollination. So that is very helpful. And last but not least, I think, as mentioned previously, it's very important to partner with the public sector to develop regulations and research and investigation. So, for example, the private sector, at least in Latin America, is not effectively developing research and innovation. This is being done by research institutes that are under the public sector influence. And they don't have a private sector mentality as maybe in Israel, where this is the core, right? You're developing companies. That doesn't happen in Latin America. So you have the research, developing the research, for example, for bio inputs, but then that is not being uptaken by the private sector to develop it into a company that can commercialize a product and be uptaken by the farmers. So this is something that I think we can also learn from the Israel venture capital development ecosystem and see how we can track, enhance that knowledge. And then working with anchor companies, as you said, to be able to help in the supply chain, that is something that is going to be very, very important.
Thank you very much, Camila. You have emphasized the importance of transfer of knowledge. You have mentioned the program, the fund that you have with Israel for the transfer of knowledge and technology. The importance of the development of startups, and you've mentioned this also as a way of cooperation between Israel and countries in the region, since the private sector in Latin America and the Caribbean is less familiar with these kinds of innovation and how you create innovation. You've mentioned that it is done mostly by governments, and this is also something that can be done between Israel and partners in the region. So, Natasha.
Thank you. Maybe I'll summarize based on this journey that I mentioned on regenerative agriculture. So, and thinking about collaboration and tools, as you asked us. The journey of regenerative agriculture follows the famous mitigation hierarchy, if I'm oversimplifying here, but we are looking, of course, at avoiding things. So, for example, in the platform that I mentioned in Brazil of the soybean value chain, the farmers that are part of this program, the 300,000 hectares, they have zero deforestation on their farm. So, for example, for us to make sure that you can look from a value chain point of view, you need a lot of traceability technology, which is AI, which is digital platforms. So we have a lot of collaborations there. If you think about reducing, it's optimization of inputs from water, of course, but any type of inputs from water, which micro-irrigation and other techniques or technologies will continue to have a big role. But then as well, if you think about crop nutrition and crop protection, precision agriculture, anything that helps precision monitoring, that help us to be precise in big, particularly now thinking about big farms, precise in terms of how we use our inputs, crop nutrition and crop protection, and any type of digital data that helps farmers on the data management. And then when you think about regenerate, for us, I think the core of that journey is soil health, of course, from a carbon sequestration point of view. And I mentioned about the soil health monitoring, carbon sequestration, low-cost carbon assessment tools. So that's really important. But then from a soil health as well, the organic matter, right? So the organic life of soil, which is still from a science point of view, let's say a science that is in development if you look at agriculture. So anything that can help us to measure better, to validate things better, so we can eventually tap into new revenues for those farmers, either policy or downstream. That's very important from a transparency point of view. So those are the type of things that I know there's a lot of startups, a lot of venture capitals, a lot of private equities investing, and I think it's an evolving landscape, I would say. And then for us as a seed company, and we have partnerships in Israel, in the UAE, anything in the area of crop performance, meaning from a climate adaptation point of view, we have today more than 30 different varieties, particularly on fruits and vegetables, that we are testing under desert conditions, high humidity, high temperature, because we want to look into with, of course, with the genetic data that we have, with germplasm, with the knowledge that we have and partners have, how we can improve through our breeding programs, partnership, or our own, how can we improve the crop performance, how can we improve the quality of those seeds to respond to drought and to respond to climate conditions in situations of extreme climate conditions. So this is a core area for us, and we're doing a lot of partnership in that space.
Okay, thank you very much, Natasha. You have touched a lot about the knowledge and the information that you transfer to your partners, the farmers, and how it impacts positively the environment and agriculture. So we are almost at the end of our panel, and I wanted to give time for questions, but I do believe we do not have time. Okay, so let me, well, I want to say that this panel gave me lots of hope. I mean, I hope you also felt it, okay? That you see some three major partners that represent three different sectors, and you see that they understand the problem, they are engaged, and they work towards solving issues, and they understand it. So for me, this gave lots of hope for the future. I can tell you that from the point of view of Israel, we would like very much to continue our cooperation. There is a lot to be done. Of course, the transfer of knowledge always has to be related to local conditions, to culture and rain and the soil and other things. That's for sure. But if you look at the challenges that we are facing today with food security, you understand that there is no other option but to work and to learn from one another. This is the only way. And if you look at the impact of agriculture on emissions, okay, more than 20% of the emissions are coming from the agricultural sector, and up to 38% of the emissions are related to the different food chains, the food industry, etc. So the emissions coming from food are enormous. But agriculture can and should be our ally in combating climate crisis. Agriculture we can reverse the trend, and agriculture can sequester CO2, can regenerate with good practices biodiversity, can contribute for us. Agriculture doesn't have to be the enemy of nature or an emitter of pollutions. It can do exactly the opposite. And this is our mission, this is our vision. I think that we are united with a vision how agriculture can become a positive force in the fight against climate change and the preservation of biodiversity, and on the same time, how we secure food security for the billions of people of this earth, and especially in the Americas. This is extremely important. We are together in that. So thank you very much. Muchas gracias, Daniel.